Welcome back to Reagan today. Coming into town, everybody's happy, getting ready for the holidays. And you know what else? Everybody deserves fair representation. The lack of funds can leave you feeling like you are lost before you go to court. That's what we're going to talk about, because board-certified family law specialist attorney Bud Kluek is here with us today. Tell us how we can get that access to justice.
Access to justice.
Access to justice.
Access to justice.
What is it?
The key to the courthouse door. Well, it's the key to the courthouse door, and it's more than just coming in the door, but whether when you come in that door, when you enter that door, whether you're going to have somebody at your side who is competent, experienced, and aggressive to defend you. In other words, are you going to have an attorney? And particularly if the other side has an attorney and you don't, if you do not have an attorney, it's almost impossible for you to have access to justice or for you to receive justice in the court system.
Now that, of course, begs the question of affordability. You know, how can one afford to get that access to justice properly?
Right. Well, again, it depends. If you recall, Joe, my two favorite words, and I teach law school, and I teach my students, the two favorite words of attorneys are not pay me, but it depends. And it depends on what kind of a case it is. If it's a criminal case, God forbid Joe Bauer was ever arrested, but if you were, for example, you would have a right to a court-appointed attorney, usually called a public defender. And the reason we all know that is because of the Miranda warnings that we have heard in endless cop shows.
Yeah.
You have a right to remain silent, so you have a right to an attorney, and if you cannot afford one, one will be appointed for you. Now, usually they expect you to pay them back, pay the state back, the taxpayers back, but they will appoint an attorney for you. That doesn't happen in family law, and it also doesn't happen that people can work on a contingency by and large. The only way that family lawyers can do it, contingency means you pay your lawyer because they keep a certain percentage of the proceeds. That can happen in personal injury suits, but it can't happen in family law except for trying to collect arrears or back child support or back spousal support. That's the only exception. Essentially, you pay attorneys by the hour in the family law arena. And there are two components, the retainer and the periodic payments.
Well, then, but people have different financial situations, obviously. So I'm assuming then the payments are different in different situations, or how does that work out when people can only afford so much?
Well, you would hope that it would be, Joe, but that's really what we're here to talk about today, because when you talk about attorneys, you have to compare apples and apples. You have to compare similarly situated attorneys. I, for example, am a board-certified specialist, and if you remember from our previous conversations, only about 2 or 3% of attorneys are board-certified specialists. 97, 98% of the attorneys are not. And then also, I've been doing this for a while, over 20 years. So you have to compare similarly situated attorneys in terms of their credentials and their experience.
Right.
And most of my peers, folks like me, set a retainer at about $5,000, $7,500, or $10,000. Some of my peers set it at $10,000. We don't do it that way. We consider those high retainers to be a barrier at the very threshold of the courthouse door, a barrier to access to justice.
So you have smaller retainers?
Essentially we do, Joe, but our approach to it is that everybody pays for 1 hour a month as the case proceeds. And so we kind of spread it out. We do generally take smaller retainers, but everybody contracts to pay for 1 hour a month, and so it kind of spreads out. It's the holiday season, or it's fast approaching, and so everybody's probably going to be watching at one time or other It's a Wonderful Life, that classic movie with Lionel Barrymore and Jimmy Stewart. And there's a scene in it where Jimmy Stewart and Lionel Barrymore get into a fight about this very issue. And Lionel Barrymore says, you have to pay for a house up front totally. And Jimmy Stewart says, no, no, no. People can pay for things over time. And what Jimmy Stewart was trying to do in the 20s with housing, access to housing, we try to do with access to justice.
Access to justice.
Nowadays.
Well, if you want access to justice, you know where to go. You've got to call Bud. Call Bud Kluek, attorney. There's the information right there. FamilyLawSanDiego.com. And you'll get your access to justice. More information, of course, SanDiego6.com as well. And thank you, Bud.